XCR 375 H&H Mag here, and tonight got a special guest, Mrs. XCR 375 H&H Mag.
Hi, everybody.
Okay, so she and I just finished watching episode 2 of Fear the Walking Dead. It's the new spin-off from the Walking Dead series. We will be discussing spoilers and discussing certain parts of the episode. So we're trying to kind of a little bit of a new format tonight with this, and kind of show people that it's how people should prepare and kind of what to look out for. So once again, disclaimer: spoilers about tonight's episode. So if you haven't seen it, turn this video off now. Okay. I'm going to ask her a set of questions. She's going to give me her opinion on it. Then she's going to ask me the same set of questions back. I'm going to give her my opinion. And this is to kind of help people think about things that we both saw in tonight's episode. And it goes to show that two different people see things differently. So, let's begin. So, what did you think of tonight's episode?
Well, it was quite interesting. They showed very well how the whole situation would develop. They gave a lot of details on what's going to happen if something like this would happen in real life. A lot of details, a lot of good information.
So basically, like if a SHTF type of situation happened, whether it be the zombie apocalypse or riots or earthquake or some type of natural disaster, you think it
I would say
was a good?
Yeah, I would say they showed the spirit of the situation very well. Was discussed a few times during this
episode,
just with how well they showed everything.
How they showed how things went from perfectly calm, just to a simple crime scene, to totally out of control and things exploding and gunshots going off everywhere.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Question number 2. Since we both live in Los Angeles and we both know how bad the traffic is, and you drive more than I do, what do you think of that particular freeway scene where they showed it at night and it was just totally backed up? Red lights one direction and headlights the other.
Yeah, well, pretty much looked like my drive from Loma Linda back to home at 5 p.m. Even though, no, it was much worse. It was pretty scary picture, and I know that once you're stuck in even less traffic, you cannot move, or you have a very hard time even exiting the freeway, even if you need to. And that picture was just completely scary. You see the red lights one direction and the white lights other direction, and just completely packed with cars.
So pretty much impossible to move anywhere when you're trying to move X amount of million of people or leaving the city. It's just not going to happen. So takeaway from that is have alternate routes, even though it might take you longer. At least hopefully your alternate routes will flow and so forth. All right. Next question. What did you think of the scene in the movie where, it's not movie, but episode, where Tobias and Mrs. C were raiding the cafeteria's food stocks?
I would do the same if I had access to that. That would be my second maybe target after a pharmacy or a gun store if I had access. But yeah, it's too bad that they left it afterwards.
Yeah. Now, let's go ahead and move on to the next question. Now, this is a key question. What were your thoughts when Mrs. C asked Tobias to stay with them? What did you
Mm.
think of that scene?
Well, it was very nice of her to offer Tobias their help, even though I think she needed his help more than he did. Um, but I was surprised that he refused to join them. I mean, in a situation like that, you probably want to stay in a group of people whom you know and you can trust, and not just by yourself only. It does not matter how well you prepared. It's always better to be with other people. So,
Okay. Um, this is kind of a funny question. Um, what did you think about the scene towards the end when Mrs. C's neighbor was being eaten by Peter?
yeah, that was one of those scenes that disgust me. Um, Scary just came out of nowhere. They had a party and then it ended up like this. It's not the way how you want your party to be ended, but it was kind of expected.
And what did you think about it when Mrs. C just closed the door and locked it and decided not to help the neighbor? Do you think in a SHTF situation we would see a lot of that living here in Los Angeles?
Yeah, we definitely would, and I would do the same. I would close the door, especially when you know or have some type of guess on what's going on, and you see something like this going on. You cannot help. I mean, it's your your life and your family comes first. So,
All right, then here's our final question for you. Um, how could Mrs. C's family be prepared? What could they have done more to be prepared for for example, an SHTF situation, not necessarily a zombie apocalypse or anything like that, but just a natural disaster, an earthquake or hurricane or foul weather? What,
well, I'm not sure, but I don't think they were prepared at all. Um, like her son was out of medicine, and she had to go to school and get some more medicine. Then to be prepared is um, usual stuff: get water, have food, have medicine, have some protection like guns. Um, maybe they were going somewhere to desert. I don't even think they have like a house somewhere out of the city.
yes, that's correct. Um,
They kind of realized pretty quick what was going on, and that's probably that was their strong side. Um, but yeah, guns, food, water, medicine,
bullets,
bullets.
first aid stuff. Okay. Um, well, that's the 6 questions I have for her. Now, she's going to go ahead and ask the same. And if she wants, she can throw some of her own questions in there related to the episode
Yeah, my turn.
if she wants. So this will be interesting.
Well, what did you think of tonight's episode?
Tonight's episode was very interesting. I liked it. Um, certain parts of it made me really think, like, oh, do I really have enough of that on hand? Type of thing. Whether it be band-aids or just simple antibiotic ointment or something like that. So it just kind of makes me think through my checklist. I'm like, yes, yes,
Mm,
yes, yes. Oh, need to buy, type of deal.
okay. Any special scenes, certain scenes that you like?
Well, I like the scene. You'll probably think this is kind of gross, but I like the scene where she bashed in her boss's head with the fire extinguisher. I think we probably have all had that dream every once in a while. Um, so I mean, that was a pretty cool scene. She took care of business, and Tobias, he's the man. Stepped up to the plate. Tobias, you need to get a bigger knife or an axe or something like that. That little
Yeah.
steak knife ain't going to go through bone, man. But yeah, you did a good job, buddy.
Yeah, it was scary.
Um,
So next question. What were your thoughts on this freeway scene?
oh, that freeway scene, like like the missus over here said, pretty much freaked me out because that's pretty much the way it's going to be in any type of like major SHTF situation, whether it be a zombie apocalypse or a pandemic, and everybody's trying to leave the city of LA and LA County. All the freeways are just going to be packed. So my thoughts on that is make sure you have a vehicle that can go off road and has enough clearances to clear stuff such as curbs and so forth.
That would be a good vehicle to have. Mm. Yeah, and that developed pretty fast. This freeway scene, right? It's been
Yeah,
a couple of days.
yeah, this has only been a few days from when everything went down, and if I'm timing the episode correctly, it was like everybody is just trying to get out of LA and get to the desert. Well, my thought on that is you're going to really need to have your own little isolated place with your group in order to weather this stuff because everybody's going to be thinking the same thing. Oh, I gotta get to the desert. I gotta get to Barstow. I gotta get to whatever Bakersfield. I gotta get to Mammoth. Away from civilization. Well, guess what? You've just got millions of people thinking the same thing, and all the freeways are going to be, you know, backed up and clogged.
Yeah, that brings another question. I guess is the important part of it is also to figure out when is the good time, when it's time to leave, because you don't want to be late on that decision, because in that case you'll be stuck in
Yes,
traffic like that.
yes, that's very true. Timing is everything.
Yep. Okay, so next question. What did you think of the food scene in the school?
I think Tobias was very smart on that. I think that was very brilliant of him. But I don't know why they left the cart of food, where they did, or maybe they did take it to the car, and they went back and didn't find anything, and they're just walking back. But I don't know. But from what I got from the episode was that they left a whole bunch of food when they ran into her boss, and they had to kill him. So I think you went through all this effort, you might as well get something out of it. You might as well pull the food.
Yeah, that's true. um, what were your thoughts about Mrs. C asking Tobias to stay with them?
I like this question because I think Mrs. C is a shill of the system, which basically means she's a sheep. I mean, in episode 1, she says the authorities would tell us if there was something going on and they would alert us. Um, I think she's having a serious reality check that her world just got turned upside down, and she's so far out of her league that she's asking a senior from high school to stay with them so uh, he can give them advice and she can disseminate it down to her family so she can make sure her family survives. She's like pulling out an encyclopedia. Tobias obviously has researched all this and has uh, read up on it and seen all this, knows what's going on. He's probably watched a lot of zombie movies and stuff. So he's like a walking encyclopedia on what's going to happen next. And Tobias is telling her in the cafeteria scene, you're going to lose power because people aren't showing up to work. You're going to lose communications. It's not going to come back because people aren't going to show up to work or they're going to get infected. And what Mrs. C is doing in her mind is checking off all this stuff. Yes, this has happened. Yes, this has happened. Yes, this has happened. This has happened also. And she's going down the checklist and going, oh my God, he's so right about this. So
Yeah,
I think that was one of the better scenes where it just kind of drove home that, you know, she's changing and that she's realizing she's out of her league and she needs a resource.
What were your thoughts about the neighbor being eaten?
Kind of a cool scene. You know, it was kind of expected, like what you said. But it kind of goes back to, you know, what would you do? Would you risk yourself to save your neighbor if you're being eaten, you know, and especially if you weren't armed or anything? And you'd have to do a close quarter battle with a zombie. I don't think I would risk myself like that unless I was armed with some type of weapon, a really big fucking weapon like an axe or a gun or something like that, where I wouldn't have to be right on top of them to drive a knife through the zombie's brain. So I think if I had a baseball bat or an axe or a firearm for sure, I would try to do something. But then, it looks like she had already been pretty much bitten up pretty good by Pete the neighbor. So if I was in Mrs. C's position, I'd probably do the same thing and just close the door and lock it and say, sorry, you're on your own. This way, I know that my family still has me as a resource to push forward and move on.
Sounds good. And the last question is, how could Mrs. C family be prepared?
Question was, how could Mrs. C's family be better prepared? One, they could probably turn off the mainstream media. Two, read up on what's going on. Three, taking food from the school like Tobias did, and you can never have too much food. What also has kind of gotten me on these episodes is nobody has shown any firearms inside this family. The man doesn't have a firearm. She doesn't have a firearm. So it's kind of like, huh. I think this family has been a bunch of sheep, and the wolves are circling the flock is what's going on. So I think they could have stocked up on food that was free from the school, which was just a give me, and they should have at least one firearm in the house. So you never know. So they should have gotten the basic beans, bullets, and band-aids. And I don't know how full the tanks are in their car of gas or not. So they should have done that too once the power started to go out and come back on, and be better prepared. So that's the end of our question and answer session. Do you have any final thoughts?
No. Overall, I just like the TV show and the episode, and I sure hope they will continue to shoot it.
My final thoughts is, so far the series is off to a really good start. I'm glad that they have done this episode on the West Coast, where it's very liberal out here. It shows two different types of mentality of liberalism out here on the West Coast, and then you got Rick over in the South, where it's a little more conservative and the culture is more oriented into stepping up to the plate, being a man, doing what's necessary, and having firearms and being a little bit more prepared. I mean, you have Herschel and his farm. You have Rick taking them to the prison. It seems like Rick had that type of mindset, like, okay, I need to think 4 steps out in order to make sure my group people survive and get to a safe place where we can, defend it and have somewhat of resemblance of a normal life. So,
Yeah, it definitely will be interesting to watch the development of their story and how they will act and what they will do and how and if they will survive. So,
yep. So, Mr. and Mrs. XCR signing off for the evening. Thank you.